I was very young. I started at age 9 in street hockey. We were living in New Jersey, and the streets, when it snowed, used to snow over and then harden, and so we could slide around on it. It would be like that after a snow for a week. And because there was no plows, they never cleaned it off. And so that's how we started playing. We started playing street hockey. Had a homemade blocker, baseball catcher's glove, shin guards. And that's how I started playing goalie. One of my first vivid memories is when I was a kid and we were living in the Bronx, New York. Every Sunday we'd have an early dinner, more like a brunch. My dad would leave every Sunday with his buddies and they'd go to the old Madison Square Garden. They'd see the New York Rovers in the afternoon and the New York Rangers at night. And that stuck with me, so somehow I had an affinity for hockey. And I remember the old Madison Square Garden. I mean, the new Madison Square Garden, which the Rangers play in now, renovated many times, was built in opened in 1967. Okay, that's the new one. One of my vivid memories is I went to the old Madison Square Garden to see the New York Rangers play when there were still 6 teams in the NHL. And I think those two things influenced me a great deal to want to play hockey. And then I really didn't start skating. I never was on skates till I was 11 years old. Growing up, my idol, and I think we all had different guys we looked up to, my idol was Eddie Giacomin. And I was a big Ranger fan, grew up in the New York metropolitan area, and Eddie Giacomin was my guy. And I got a little museum from all these years doing this, and one of my prized possessions is a really cool Eddie Giacomin mask replica mounted on a plaque with a signed picture of Eddie Giacomin, and that's the guy kind of I idolized growing up. And I did get a chance to meet him a couple of times in my younger years, and it's pretty cool. The desire to be important. Let's face it, if you're going to be a goalie, you have to embrace the opportunity to make a significant difference every time you play. And to be the guy, the one that everybody looks up to. Back then there was only one goalie on a team mostly, so you got to play all the time, you got to be somewhat important. And I think when you look back on it, that was the main reason for me. The equipment certainly was cool, but it was way different than it is today, and you needed, I think, a whole lot more courage then than you need now. You still need plenty of courage, but we needed lots of courage back then. I had an uncle who took lots of pictures, and I've still got a lot of these pictures in a storage unit actually where I live right now. And I saw some of them the other day when I moved, but we played in a little rink in Westwood, New Jersey called Fritz Diedel's. And Fritz Diedel's was a figure skating rink. There were no benches, there were no boards. It was a giant box of ice with cement walls around it. And when you weren't on the ice as a forward, you'd sit in the corner on this kind of elevated platform of sorts. And the game would go on around you. And it was literally a square. It was just a square. And that's where I played for the very first time, skated out and played goalie for the first time. And I can still, in those pictures, I wore one of those flush, cheap face masks. And we used to have to wear a helmet too. So we had one of those cheap Winwell helmets that we'd put over the mask. So if you could picture the mask and then the helmet coming over it right here. And there was no standards, there was no Hockey Equipment Certification Council, there was nothing. And it was pretty cool actually to see those pictures. GP65s, Coopers, I can still remember them. My first catch glove, a GM9. See, the GM12s were for the big boys. We had the GM9s and the GM6s. The 9s were made of leather. The 6s were made of the cheap vinyl. But that's all you could get back then. It was all Cooper. Brown didn't exist, Vaughn didn't exist, nobody existed. It was Cooper. And there was one color, it was brown. I have forgotten more than I can remember at this particular point in my life. But I think one of the best memories I have being part of a team was winning a national championship playing for the Springfield Olympics in Springfield, Massachusetts, when I was 18 years old, and we won a national championship in the old New England Junior Hockey League for the Springfield Olympics. I've never won a Stanley Cup. Would love to win a Stanley Cup. I was part of 2 American Hockey League Calder Cups, one in Rochester, New York with the Sabre organization, one in Milwaukee with the Predator organization. But at the end of the day, I don't necessarily measure success by winning and losing. I know if my general manager heard that, he would be angry, but that's not the case. I measure success based on the people that have been positively influenced and are way better for having either been around me or what me and the people that I work with do. And that's my definition of success, watching the maturity and the growth and development of a Pekka Renning, and a Steve Shields, and a Dominic Hasek, and Carter Hutton, and people that are working for me, Nick Petraglia, who is at Miami University, who is just a freshman at Miami University when he started doing camps with us and learning, and now he's a well-respected USA coach. Those are the things that are my highlights. My highlights are the people that have gone on to pretty important, valuable things as a result of having been influenced by what we do. Before, when we were talking, we talked about what influenced me to want to be a goalie, and as I said, it's making a significant difference every day when you play. And I think from a coaching standpoint, it's exactly the same thing. Trying to make a significant difference, not only for the team, but in the life of the individual. And especially when we do camps, it is so important to me and such a great thrill to me when I get emails from parents and from kids after camp saying, what a great experience, I learned so much, this was so cool. And then even now, I get them years later. I never realized how valuable this was, but I'm doing this now, and I learned this, or I worked for you and learned this, and I learned that, and I'm forever grateful for that experience or this. And I think that's what drives my engine, is making a significant positive difference in others' lives, both as athletes and as coaches that work with us. First off, you have to love it. You have to really enjoy playing. You have to embrace what it takes to be a goalie. A lot of people don't, all they want to do is kick their arms and legs. They just want to be athletic. I think you have to learn the game. You can't just stand in net. I encourage even our NHL goalies to also be a bit of a historian. I think you have to know where it's come from. You've got to know who Johnny Bauer was, and Gump Worsley, and Ken Dryden. I do camps now and the kids don't even know who Grant Fuhr was. And I think those things are pretty important, because you have to know where you've come from to know where you're going.